Justice Kirby, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trump, and I pay my respects to the colleagues from the United Nations family and the vital work that they do, particularly the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, who provided support and assistance, but respected the independence of the Commission of Inquiry. This is the report of the Commission of Inquiry. This is the report that was delivered to the Human Rights Council in 2014. And this is the report that must be acted upon and not simply put in the bottom drawer of the big offices in Geneva or New York, where it will be forgotten. I also pay respects to North Korea Human Rights Watch for its consistent and committed actions which come together in this webinar which we are conducting today. And I pay respects to Sir Geoffrey Nice and to the Geoffrey Nice Foundation for the excellent work that it has been performing and supporting, and that is the subject of the reports that we have received already at this webinar today. This is exactly the type of follow-up action that the Commission of Inquiry and its members considered should be taken. The action of the members of the Commission in writing to the Human Rights Council was not usual, but it was taken on the permission of the Special Rapporteur on the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Thomas Arroyo Quintana, and it was laid before the Human Rights Council. It's important for me to point out that I am not now, in respect of North Korea, an officer of the United Nations. But no one could have gone through the process of preparing this report and unveiling the shocking evidence that was powerfully presented in the public hearings of the Commission of Inquiry, adopting a methodology of transparency to respond to the secrecy of North Korea was our means, and those means resulted in this report, and this report must be acted on by the international community. Last week in the United Nations at the General Assembly of World Leaders, statements were made by many of the world leaders which are relevant to this webinar today. President Biden, fresh from the reports of the shocking events in Afghanistan on the departure of United States and other countries' military forces, made the point that problems of this kind cannot be solved by any individual country, however strong, however powerful. Problems of international human rights need to be solved by the United Nations and by the cooperation of all countries. And that is the message that is respected in this report and that must be brought to this webinar today. And secondly, President Moon Jae-in of the Republic of Korea, South Korea, made the point that action has to be taken to deal with the issues of security and peace in the Korean region. It is natural and it is responsible that President Moon Jae-in should be very deeply concerned about the dangers to peace that exist in the nuclear stockpile that has recently been built up by North Korea. And his call, which reflects a statement that existed in the report of the Commission of Inquiry, for action to negotiate a peace treaty to finally end the Korean War of 1951-53. That statement is a good and helpful intervention, and it should be followed up. But one lesson can be taken by us all from this report. There will be no peace on the Korean Peninsula. There will be no peace for the people of South Korea. There will be no peace for the beloved people of North Korea unless there is action on human rights in North Korea, for the reasons that are explained in this report. And that is why dealing with human rights is urgent, is a priority, and is important for peace and security. Peace and freedom from the risks of nuclear weapons are themselves human rights concerns, as President Moon Jae-in recognizes. But you cannot just deal separately with security. You have to deal with it connected with and associated with action in respect of human rights. And that is why this webinar today is so important. It reminds the international community of the situation of human rights in North Korea. Nothing that has come to the attention of the United Nations, of the Office of the United Nations in Seoul, or of the international community, or the High Commission of Human Rights, or the Human Rights Council, indicates that the problems in this report have been solved. They have not been solved. And the world promised in 1945 on the Charter of the United Nations, and repeated in 1948 on the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that it would not look the other way. It would not turn away when confronted with tangible and reasonable testimony of crimes against humanity. It would not look away. And that is why this webinar is so important. I congratulate all of the lawyers who have been working for the Geoffrey Foundation, going through the possibilities of following up the report. These possibilities, all except one, were mentioned and explored in the report of the Commission of Inquiry. The one that was not mentioned was the one that has been opened up more recently by the Gambia in the proceedings involving Myanmar, Burma, and that opens the possibility of action in the International Court of Justice. That, as has been pointed out, is a possibility. It has some defects and some weaknesses. But in this situation, we must explore every possibility, including those that the Commission of Inquiry itself identified, and including those that have been explored and outlined today. It is not my function to say what will work or what will not work, but the one lesson that comes from this report and from the reports we have had at this webinar is doing nothing is not an option. Doing nothing is not an option in respect of the crimes against humanity that were revealed in the report of the Commission of Inquiry of the United Nations. North Korea did not have to join the United Nations. but it did join the United Nations, and it signed the international treaties on human rights, and it is bound by those treaties, and it must be made accountable for those treaties, and that is why this webinar conducted in Seoul and brought to the whole world, as the report of the Commission of Inquiry was, is so important and so timely. So I congratulate all those who have worked with the Geoffrey Nice Foundation and with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, with the Special Rapporteur, with the Council on Human Rights, with the General Assembly, and uniquely with the Security Council that received the report of the Commission of Inquiry on its agenda, where it still remains. And I encourage the closest examination of the possibilities that have been outlined today and action. Words are good and words are powerful, but action is what is vital. And that is why this is a timely, important and overdue webinar, and I hope action will follow.
Thank you very much, Justice Kirby. I already got several questions addressed to you, but I'm not sure whether you will be able to stay with us for the...
No, I can stay. I'm not going to.
Thank you so much, because I would not like to break the sequence of speeches, because once we start discussing, it will be no end to it. So thank you very much and stay with us. And our next speaker is Eric Hasketh from UN Human Rights Office in Seoul. I would now like to open the time for discussion, which was scheduled here for 15:45, and I'm very pleased to see that we catch up on time as well. I will turn to our host and to ask how much time for discussion we shall have, so that I can maybe compress some of the questions I'm getting online, and so that we do not waste too much time, and that we actually use this opportunity to ask and to discuss some important issues with distinguished speakers of this panel. How much time do we have? So we are going to have 15 or 50 minutes? 15. Like
15 or
20 minutes, wow. A very efficient way of dealing with timekeeping. So Ms. Nam suggested that the first question go to Justice Kirby, because he would need to leave us the first. And while you are maybe preparing your questions, I already have questions online for Mr. Kirby. Justice Kirby, are you with us? And
Yes.
And so allow me to ask a very short question that I got online for you. And the question obviously is, when it comes to available legal mechanisms, is there any legal mechanisms for you that you thought would be the most adequate at this point of time?
The most adequate would be the use of the International Criminal Court. It's a UN court, it is established, it has a jurisdiction, it has a means of securing jurisdiction over DPRK. It requires a reference from the Security Council of the United Nations. There have been 2 cases where a nation was not a party to the Rome Statute, where there has been a reference, and therefore it could be done. When the report of the COI was considered in the Security Council, I was invited to sit there. And in that beautiful room in New York, you see 15 human beings who have the great responsibilities of the United Nations in dealing with very difficult and complicated matters. It cannot be said that it is impossible. It requires the concurrence of the 5 permanent members, and that means it includes the need for concurrence by the Russian Federation and by China. Both of those countries have been unfavourable to action as proposed by the COI, but when we look, we can see that the Security Council has, in the years since 2014, twice approved increases in sanctions against North Korea, which means that China and the Russian Federation voted for those increases. And so it is not impossible, it is the best way forward, and we should not accept ourselves the moral responsibility of not using the best way forward by abandoning the effort. It is the obligation of members of the United Nations to use and reuse efforts to get the Security Council to fulfill its responsibilities. This was promised in 1945 and 1948, and now is the time to require that the promise be delivered, and if it is not delivered, to identify the reason why. I think it is unlikely that the General Assembly would create a special tribunal. I think there would be difficulties in the International Court of Justice pursuing the matter, and as the report today has pointed out, doing so has some real problems, especially with enforcement. But we have to keep up the dialogue, and we have to inform the world, and we have to place the moral responsibility for no action on those who stop action. And that includes any in North Korea and in the Republic of Korea who stand in the way of having matters considered by the one organ in the United Nations family that has the jurisdiction, the power, but it needs the door to be opened. And that is what should happen. That is the most swift, economical, appropriate, and cost-efficient way of having these issues determined. North Korea denies the findings of the report of the COI. Let them deny that before the International Criminal Court.
Justice Kirby, following Justice Kirby, thank you so much. And following on what you just said, there is a fact in today's world, and this is that international criminal justice is a slow process. So choosing one of the avenues and then waiting years and years to get negative or positive result, or any result at all, can be discouraging also. Are you one of the legal practitioners who would actually suggest to concurrently deal with accountability at any of these 3 mechanisms, with each single of these mechanisms, to start an ICC procedure, an ICJ, and to try to find a state that would be able to implement universal jurisdiction? Or would you say, no, choose one wisely and concentrate on one of the mechanisms and wait and see what will happen?
the answer to that question has to be decided essentially by Korean people. This is their family. This is their nation. These are their people. These are their cousins and uncles and grandmothers. They have to decide this. I myself think they should pursue all options. Time is running out for many of the options to be fulfilled, especially family reunions, which could be so simple using Zoom technology. It is barbarous. It is barbarous to deny links between the people of North Korea and their families in the Republic of Korea. And so I think everything should be tried, but the priority, I believe, should be dialogue in the United Nations and promotion of knowledge in the international community and clever negotiation. President Trump, I think, was right to have a meeting with Kim Jong-un. Doing nothing is not acceptable, but his technique of negotiation, of going straight to the most difficult center, was not a correct way of dealing with a very complex diplomatic problem. The right way is to start on the outer circle and to move from relatively easy tasks like family reunions by Zoom technology, a very easy technical task that should be possible, and then moving slowly but surely, but not too slowly, into the core of the problem, which includes human rights and nuclear weapons. And that is what should be done. And that is what ROK should be endeavoring to get done. And giving away items like a peace treaty without getting anything at all in return is not really a very sensible way to negotiate with a state like North Korea, which believes in having tantrums, like blowing up the building that was built for dialogue, blowing it up, smashing it, destroying it, closing the conversation. That is childish behavior, and it has to be called out by all members of the international community.
Justice Kirby, thank you very much. Would you be willing to stay with us for one question from the audience? And
yes.
After that, we will release you from your duties with us.
You're sounding very judicial.
Oh, okay. I'm learning. I'm not a lawyer, but it has something efficient in the ways you do it at court, so why shouldn't we
That's
try it
true.
here as well? Please, has anyone from the audience ready to ask the question to Justice Kirby?
Including in Korean and translated.
Maybe someone from Zoom audience would like to ask a question. So Geoffrey, do you have any questions to Justice Kirby?
Only if nobody else does. But there is one question I would like to ask him, thanking him very much for his contribution, noting how he showed the way, not only in the way he ran the inquiry with public hearings of evidence, but thereafter using every opportunity to make public its findings. He really set the scene for the rest of us. But the question I have is in two parts, really. First, I think he's touching on the point, and it's not a comfortable point. We have to recognize that to get something to the International Court of Justice, for example, needs another country with a shared interest. And in the case of Gambia, the shared interest with Myanmar was, of course, or rather with Rohingya Muslims, was of course Islam. And that was why this small country was able to do what everybody else was fearful of doing. There is no country with a shared interest in DPRK's offending except one country, and that is the country where most of you are sitting at the moment. And that's a reality we have to face. We understand that that country cannot take its neighbour to the ICJ for all sorts of reasons, but that is, in reality, what would be, I suppose, the natural step to take. And so my question to Justice Kirby is this: if, as he very helpfully says, all avenues should be pursued, does he have advice to give NKW or anyone else? Does he have any advice to give on which country it may be possible to stimulate to take this matter to the International Court of Justice? Thank you.
Well, I'd like to start by paying my respects to Sir Geoffrey himself. When we were preparing our report and considering complex questions of international law, we had a meeting with him in London. I'm sure he doesn't mind my revealing this. And over a very frugal repast, we talked about issues, serious issues that were coming for our decision. And I thank him for that, and I thank the Foundation in his name for pursuing this hybrid webinar. As to the nation or country that would have a natural role in taking DPRK to the International Court of Justice, if that were determined to be a realistic and useful strategy. I think it isn't quite true to say no nation has a natural reason. It may not have a reason like religion shared between a victim and an accuser, but every nation has the common interest in the purposes of the United Nations, in the principles of human rights, in the Charter of the United Nations, and in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, who would be most appropriate in the name of Eleanor Roosevelt and René Cassin's Great Charter? Who would be the most appropriate to pursue the issue of North Korean human rights? Not looking away, not turning their back. One country that stands out, I think, could be Germany, could be the European Union as a group of countries, could be the countries of Europe that saw the horrors of the Nazi oppressions that occurred in my lifetime when I was a boy. And it may be that even the events that are happening in Germany at this time will open possibilities that might be pursued, because Germany has had a resurrection since the Second World War, and it might possibly take and pursue this course. Mr. Sprinkles mentioned Europe, and our chair mentioned Europe, and Europe was a strong supporter of our investigations. So I would not put that out of the question. I do agree that it's not possible for the Republic of Korea, and I can't see any other nation in the immediate region. I don't think it would be appropriate for the Western permanent members of the Security Council, but there are some who have seen the horrors of crimes against humanity close up, and it may be that they would be willing to pursue this strategy if it was considered to have a possibility of success.
Justice Kirby, thank you so much. We are now continuing without you, and we hope to stay in dialogue with you in the future as well, to draw on your experience as a justice and as human rights activist, as you have become now one. Thank you very much, and hope to be in touch soon.
Thank you very much.